No, it's too much effort. It just,
I don't ever do that.
so you're not intimidated, but what I realize is I'm actually having something to share. It's not about really feeling, it's about telling a story or something. Yeah, they wouldn't either. Many of them were there only because they had to be, because they knew only two ways forward in the world. No other way. And their parents wanted to do something. Many of them were not always because they should. Some people should.
So the digging was singing.
What you really should do for the first 10 is play an intro, and then as soon as the verse starts, modulate up with step.
It's so full of helpful advice.
Yeah. Make that big.
How to torture your congregation.
Yeah. You don't want to be taken from you.
And so when you start, you didn't matter if I'm gonna go over there. Even though.
Now it's on. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Urbana-Champaign. My name is Linda Owens, and I'm a member of the worship committee here at UUCUC. We are a church of many different theologies and identities, united by our shared commitment to building community, seeking inspiration, promoting justice, and finding peace. Please look around at the color-coded lanyards of your neighbors and be aware and respectful of others' needs and boundaries. Continued masking is welcome, but no longer required here on Sunday mornings. We are a congregation that embraces kids of all ages. You or your child are welcome to get a coloring kit from the box in the entryway, just near where the lanyards are. And after the time for all ages, kids will be invited to head downstairs for religious exploration. Whoever you are and however you are joining us, know that you are welcome here, and this service is here for you. May you find in it something that you need. If you want to follow along with the written order of service, you can find that link just below this video on our website. And if you want to chat with your fellow UUCUC members, you can find the live stream chat box on your YouTube page. Remember, there is still time to send a joy and sorrow to be read aloud later in the service. You can email your message to joysandsorrows@uucuc.org, or if you are here in the sanctuary, there are note cards back there on that table for handwritten joys and sorrows, and the ushers will also pass them out when the time is right. They will also collect them later in the service. And now I will invite you to take a moment to turn in your seats, or stand if you like, and greet your neighbors. Please just say hello for now. The deep sharing will come later. I will call us back together with a ring of the chime. At my old church, that often lasted 20 minutes because everybody had to say hi to everybody. Our land acknowledgement, which we integrate into every service, takes on special resonance as a practice that connects us to the history of this place and our own responsibilities as stewards and members of a wider community and as stewards of the land. Here on Green Street, we worship on the lands of the traditional territories of the Kaskaskia, Miamiua, Odwewadmi, Kickapoo, Peoria, and Oceti-Sakowin, the original nations of this land. Indigenous peoples throughout our country are still working to be treated with respect and basic human dignity, and to have the rights of self-determination. Wherever you are this morning, I invite you now to take a breath and consider the history and peoples of the land you are resting on. May we always remember where we are, the sacredness of this place, and the many people and other living beings who belong to it. Whenever we gather, we light a flaming chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition, to mark out this time as special and sacred. If you have a chalice or candle at home, I invite you to light it now. Please join in our unison chalice lighting. The words are not in your order of service, but will be projected on the screen. We light this chalice for the challenge of climbing a mountain, for the joy of the view from the top, and for the reward of coming back down.
It just came back down.
Oops. Are we having a chalice fail?
Chalice. Come on, Chalice, you can do this. Well, it lit before, but then it went on strike.
Please rise as you are willing and able and join us in the singing of hymn 1068, Rising Green. Now we have a time for all ages. I don't know how many little ones we have here or if any of them want to come forward, but if you do, that's great. And if you don't, that's fine. You can just stay where you're seated. Today we are going to read We're Going on a Bear Hunt by Michael Rosen and Helen Oxenberry. We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. What a beautiful day. We're not scared. Uh-oh, grass, long wavy grass. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. Oh no, we've got to go through it. Swishy swashy, swishy swashy, swishy swashy. We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. What a beautiful day. We're not scared. Oh no, a river. A deep, cold river. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. Oh no, we've got to go through it. Splash, 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 splash. We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. What a beautiful day. We're not scared. Oh no, mud, thick, oozy mud. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. Oh no, we've got to go through it. Squelch, squirch, squelch, squirch, squelch, squirch. We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. What a beautiful day. We're not scared. Uh-oh, a forest, a big, dark forest. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. Oh no, we've got to go through it. Stumble, trip, stumble, trip, stumble, trip. We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. What a beautiful day. We're not scared. Oh no, a snowstorm, a swirling, whirling snowstorm. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. Oh no, we've got to go through it. Hoo woo, hoo woo, hoo woo. We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. What a beautiful day. We're not scared. Oh no, a cave. A narrow, gloomy cave. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. Oh no, we've got to go through it. Tiptoe, tiptoe, tiptoe. What's that? One shiny wet nose, two big furry ears, two big googly eyes. It's a bear. Quick, back through the cave. Tiptoe, tiptoe, tiptoe. Back through the snowstorm. Hoo woo, hoo woo. Back through the forest. Stumble, trip, stumble, trip, stumble, trip. Back through the mud. Squelch, squirch, squelch, squirch. Back through the river. Splash, 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 splash. Back through the grass. Swishy, swashy, swishy, swashy. Get to our front door. Open the door. Up the stairs. Oh no, we forgot to shut the door. Back downstairs. Shut the door. Back upstairs. Into the bedroom. Into the bed. Under the covers. We're not going on a bear hunt again.
You're up.
It's that time. We as Unitarian Universalists acknowledge that our circle of care does not stop at our church doors. We're deeply connected to the community we find ourselves in and to the wider world. Please continue to keep an eye on your e-news weekly newsletter for opportunities to show up, find support, get involved, and be part of this community. Next week, we will be celebrating the generosity of plants by exchanging vegetables during the service. If you are willing and able, please bring a vegetable to share. Lynn's going to bring me. All produce left at the end of the service will be donated through Sola Gratia Farm, and this service will be led by Kiri Fagan-Olmschneider. We will now, I think, have a video about this year's crop walk from Sandy Hannum.
Hi, I'm Sandy Hannum, and I want to tell you about Crop Walk. Crop Walk is a community-wide interfaith effort to fight hunger and poverty and relieve suffering from disasters. Right now, the effects of climate change and war have dramatically increased hunger and poverty. Horrendous natural disasters are happening much more frequently, causing suffering all over the world. And refugees fleeing war and oppression are desperate for help. It is overwhelming. But take heart, because with Crop Walk, we can work together to put our compassion into action. Together, we can make a real difference in our own community and elsewhere. Of the funds raised, 25% will go to local organizations, the Daily Bread Soup Kitchen, Eastern Illinois Food Bank, Sola Gratia Farm, and Wesley Food Pantry. The other 75% will go wherever it is needed most, including relief efforts for refugees and those suffering from natural disasters. In Crop Walk, there are over 300 service organizations worldwide coordinating their efforts. This year's Crop Walk will be held on Sunday, October 1st. but fundraising will go on through the summer. Our church has been an enthusiastic participant in Crop Walk for many years. You can help in this effort by going to the website you see on your screen. Donate on behalf of the UU Walkers team or a particular walker, or join the team. We need you. Thank you for your generosity and compassion in supporting this worthy cause.
Of justice in the world. For our July Sundays, we are sharing our plate with the Urbana-Champaign Books to Prisoners. Books to Prisoners is a working group of the Independent Media Center with a mission to provide books to incarcerated people throughout the state of Illinois. You can give by text or through the online portal on our website. Or if you are here in the sanctuary, the basket will be passed. Checks can be made out to the UUCUC. Half of what you give will go towards sustaining the work of this church. The other half will go directly to the Books to Prisoners. We invite you to give whatever is generous for you, and know that anything you contribute will be gratefully received and put to use, helping make a real impact for people who need it. The basket will now be passed, and we'll hear from Linda and Jim.
Some folks say there ain't no bears in Arkansas. Some folks never seen a bear at all. Some folks say the bears go around eating babies raw. Some folks got a bear across the hall. Some folks say the bears go around smelling bad. Others say the bear is honey sweet. Some folks say this bear's the best I ever had. Some folks got a bear beneath their feet. Some folks drive the bears out of the wilderness. Some to see a bear would pay a fee. Me, I just bear up to my bewildered best. Some folks even see a bear in me. Some folks drive the bears out of the wilderness. Some to see a bear would pay a fee. Me, I just bear up to my bewildered best. Some folks even see the bear in me. Some meet a bear and take him out to lunch with you. Even though your friends may stop and stare. Just remember it's a bear there in the bunch with you. And it just don't come no better than the bear. So meet a bear and take her out to lunch with you. Even though your friends may stop and stare. Just remember it's a bear there in the bunch with you. And it just don't come no better than
Each Sunday here at UUCUC, we make space to share the joys and sorrows closest to our hearts. While Michael plays our best blessing song, Longtime Son, you may write down the joys and sorrows that you wish to share, either on a card or in an email message to joysandsorrows@uucuc.org. Then I will read the messages so that we can celebrate each other's joys and support each other's griefs. During the song, you may also come forward and take a moment at our altar table at our altar table. We have glass beads and flower petals, which you're invited to place into a shared vessel. The stones will sink to the bottom and ground us. The petals will float, balancing delicately between water and air. You may hand your card to an usher or bring it to the basket up here on the altar. I have one email, joy and sorrow. If you sent one recently, just like wave and maybe it'll come faster. A joy from Priscilla Cron. I finished my radiation treatments this week. Only 9 more infusions left to go. The end is in view. That's a good end. Okay, and several cards. From Jim Hannum. Sandy and I lived in Newfoundland for 2 years. After 50 years, we're going back, accompanied by our daughter and daughter-in-law. Not to stay, just to visit. Sorrow from Cindy Ingold. My best friend, Dee, passed away on July 7th from ovarian cancer. We were friends for 53 years. I'm devastated by her death, but I am blessed to have shared 53 years of my life with this remarkable woman. And a joy from David Gross. Last Sunday, I attended services at the UU Church of Bloomington, Indiana, a large UU church adjacent to a Big Ten campus. Both their building and their culture are supportive of individuals with mobility challenges. If I've missed your joy or sorrow, we'll be sure to get it in the e-news this coming week. There's more in the email. Stupid email. Okay. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, thank you, Sally. Okay. This is from early in the week from Jenny Hunt. Sorrow and anger at the news of the firebombing of the Plano, Texas UU Church on July 23rd. Yet another reminder of the world we are living in and that we are not immune. Sending much love and support to our UU siblings in Plano. There were no injuries. It was done in the middle of the night, but very devastating. Prayers from Sally. Prayers for Philip Eichelberger. Philip Eichelberger had a bad fall last week and broke 2 vertebrae in his neck. Emergency surgery prevented any permanent paralysis, but he will have a long road ahead as he works to recover motor function and coordination. He is grateful to the medical team at Carl and is feeling optimistic about the future, welcomes your prayers and healing thoughts over the next weeks and months of recovery. And from Conan Jerkowski, we are joyful to have Bonnie Jerkowski move from Oak Park to Mahomet. She was a member of the Unity Temple Unitarian Church in Oak Park for many years. We're excited to have her close by to her grandchildren, Lily, Barrett, and Maddie, and all the adventures that wait in central Illinois. And I think that's it. A final joy that Sally's here to prop us up. Thank you, Sally. Okay.
One of the things about being on the worship committee is that you have the opportunity to occasionally lead a service. And so I, back in April or sometime, decided that was my turn. And what I came up with was a little meditation on doing what's difficult in life, because sometimes at the end of that is something rewarding. And this was in the context of a backpacking trip I took back in June. So I called it Embracing the Difficult. In the fall of 2022, I signed up for a trip called Introduction to Lightweight Backpacking. The trip involved, yeah, right, like there's no such thing, really. The trip involved 5 days of hiking, carrying a 30-pound backpack, and 4 nights of camping on the Appalachian Trail in southwest Virginia. It had been 30 years since I'd last backpacked, and although I had dreamed wistfully of doing additional trips since those in my late 20s and 30s, I never really did anything to make it happen. So I signed up, And I had two questions in my mind at the time I did that. One was, at age 60, can I still do this? The other was, do I want to? So we were to gather on a Sunday evening in Damascus, Virginia, which is a little bitty town on the Appalachian Trail, sometimes referred to as the friendliest town on the AT. The knot in my belly showed up a few days before departure. I figured once I got to Damascus and met my guides and my fellow hikers, I would surely feel better. So I arrived in Damascus late on a Sunday morning and dropped my belongings at the house where we were to spend our first 2 nights of our trip. I sat on the front porch, thinking about how to spend the hours until our 5 o'clock gathering time. I was hot and tired, and my temperamental knee that has been bothering me off and on for 30 years was bothering me and had been for the last week or so. On top of all that, a regrettable lunch choice was causing me some distress. I was sat on this porch feeling completely unready and unenthusiastic in spite of all my preparations for it, and I started to question my hubris for believing that I was fit enough to put 30 pounds on my back and hike up and down rough terrain. I was feeling far from my normal sturdy self and was embarrassed for believing that repeated hikes up and down that tiny hill at Orchard Downs would prepare me. The other backpackers arrived near our check-in time, and I could not avoid the pointless and unconstructive mind game of comparing myself unfavorably to them. They were all more fit, better prepared, more enthusiastic. I was sure to be the slowest one in the group and hold them all up. Round and round the thoughts went. After introductions and iced tea on the front porch, our first official activity was to watch the senior of the two guides, unpack her own pack and show us the stuff she carries for a backpacking trip and explain why. After she finished, we all sort of looked at each other as though having the same thought. I brought all the wrong stuff. In bed that night, the knot that had started small in my gut a few days ago mushroomed, moved into my chest, and parked there, mocking my vain attempts at sleep. I tried all of my usual strategies, breathing exercises, quiet music, sleep stories, boring podcasts, but none of them seemed to work. Exhaustion finally took over and I drifted off. The next day was all hands-on instruction: how to filter water, how to set up a tarp, how to set up a tent, how to light our stoves, pack our bags, keep our sacred clothing dry, and how to cook breakfast and dinner in Ziploc bags. We assembled all of our stuff and laid it out on the bed so the guides could go through it and make sure we had what we needed, but that we didn't have any extraneous cargo. After this shakedown, we assembled all of our meals and snacks, filled our water reservoirs, and packed our bags. Packed and ready for the morning's departure, I could not shake the nagging uneasiness and finally confessed my growing anxiety to Tally, one of the guides. I am really anxious about this trip. She said, yeah, I can tell. Come sit down. Come sit down here with me and talk to me about it. She asked me about my preparation, what specifically I was anxious about. I knew I was worried about my knee, but at that point I didn't quite have the clarity to realize that my biggest fear was simply that I would hate it and I would be grumpy and miserable the whole trip. I talked instead about worrying about being the slowest, least fit person in the group, and she said even if I could hike just 1 mile per hour, we would still get to our campsite in plenty of time. I knew I could go faster than that. And I did feel better just owning my anxiety, and I was grateful that she took it seriously rather than just offering me bland, cheery reassurances. Next morning, we began. After some stretching and pack adjustments, we were off. Finding my place in the back, just in front of the other guide, Adele, I was alarmed by the pace. Holy bleep! Are we really going to go this fast the whole time? That part of the AT is covered in tree roots and rocks of all sizes and shapes. The slippery roots cross the trail at all angles, and the rocks poke out in all directions. Hiking on it requires unwavering attention to the trail and where the next footfall is, something that was hard for me to do at that speed, not to mention the cardiovascular challenge of carrying my 30-pound pack. This day included a 1,200-foot ascent over a 3-mile stretch, with most of that happening in the last mile and a half. Before starting this bit, Tally gave us instructions on how to climb something this steep. Step, rest, like a wedding or a graduation march. Go too fast and your lungs can't provide sufficient oxygen for your racing heart. I took my time identifying landmarks every 10 yards along the trail that would be my next destination, congratulating myself for getting to each one and expressing gratitude for my body for carrying me that far. Eventually, we arrived at our campsite for the night. We searched for campsites along the creek, down the hill from the shelter. All of the best places, that is, flat, soft, covered in pine needles, inviting, were also proximate to large dead trees that were wrapped in caution tape, stamped with the words, "Killer trees." They were all big, dead pines with large, pointy branches sticking out all the way up and down their trunks. One good windstorm would impale anyone who was camped near them. Tally told us there were still several good sites in the area and pointed them out to us. I looked in dismay at the areas she pointed to. Rocky, root-covered, tucked under low-lying bushes. None of them looked appealing to me, and I again questioned my judgment for signing up. But to my amazement, I was able to pitch my little tent between roots and rocks without having something jabbing me in the back all night. After dinner around the dormant fire pit, fires are not consistent with the leave no trace philosophy, so we didn't have them. Everyone was in their tents before the sun went down. Backpacker's midnight, as it's called. Exhausted, yet restless and uncomfortable, I squirmed in my tent, trying to find a comfortable position, one in which I would not feel like I was constantly on the verge of sliding off my inflatable sleeping pad and onto the ground. I was envious of the snoring sounds I heard coming from other tents. Next morning, we got up in the rain and hastily packed our tents and sleeping bags. We ate breakfast, donned our rain gear, hefted our packs on our back, and set out in the rain, and it rained all day. We stopped only briefly because stopping only made everyone cold. We went up to the top of Hurricane Mountain, down to Fox Creek, across Virginia State Route 603, and then took our lunch under the meager shelter of a roadside kiosk. After lunch, we went back up again, another 600 feet, to Old Orchard Shelter, our campsite for the night. We found an open, grassy area near the shelter and pitched our wet tents during the brief respite from the afternoon rain. By dinner time, the rain had returned, and my Ziploc dinner was a failure. Crunchy, partially rehydrated rice, mixed with some chicken and seasoning mix. Feeling discouraged about the day, I perked up a bit when Grace pulled a bag of Mint Milano cookies and shared them with the group. I was grateful for that and the fact that the inside of my tent and my sleeping clothes and gear were all still warm and dry. In my tent by 6 p.m., I spent the next 12 hours hunkered, listening to music, what few podcasts were downloaded on my phone, and trying to sleep. The forecast was for clear skies the next day. But just before birdsong, it rained again, and I felt cheated out of the promise of nice weather. Fortunately, though, it stopped, and the birds started their pre-dawn singing. I figured if they were up, it was morning, and it was okay for me to get up. I crawled out of my tent and looked up to see a bright crescent moon overhead, said a prayer of gratitude for the clear sky. We had breakfast and again packed up wet gear, then headed up again. Once we cleared the canopy of the trees, we had a long lunch and laid our wet gear out on the rocks in the sun. We had our first encounter with the wild ponies here. They're used to keep vegetation in the area down to maintain the open vistas. We stopped briefly at a place called The Scales, where we were delighted to use a real bathroom and dispose of our trash. This day included the greatest mileage of the trip, 6.2 up and down, but was sunny, warm, and had spectacular views of the surrounding mountains, layer after layer of mountaintops as far as we could see. Our campsite for the night was near Wise Shelter, a beautiful sprawling area next to a creek called Big Wilson. Once we took off our packs, I realized I was wrecked. Everything hurt. I could barely manage the poles in my tent and stumbled and sputtered while setting it up. My dinner that night was ramen noodles and chicken, which I ate half-heartedly, exhaustion killing my appetite. At bedtime, I took 2 ibuprofen and crawled into my tent. The sight was beautiful, with the rush of Wilson Creek audible from my sleeping bag, and gave me hope for a restful night of sleep. Others headed off to their tents, too, in spite of the early hour. Once I lay down, every aching body part started screaming at me. Fidgety and restless, I wondered how I could be so exhausted and still wide awake. No matter what I did, I could not calm my mind. The itinerary said tomorrow is the most challenging of the trip. I won't be able to do it. I'm already wrecked. Everything hurts. My knee is going to give out. Why can't I sleep? We'll have to call Lumpy to come get me and haul me back to town. The others will finish without me. I'll be the only one who couldn't finish. Why did I sign up for this? What is the appeal of backpacking anyway? We hike in these beautiful areas, but can't even appreciate the views because I have to look down at the trail all the time to make sure I don't trip or break an ankle. We go to bed before dark every night, exhausted yet unable to sleep, and miss the opportunity to see the magnificent blanket of stars that I'm seeing tonight only because I've had to pee 3 times. When I get home, I'm selling all my backpacking stuff on eBay. I'll stick to hiking in the future with beds, showers, and electricity available at the end of the day. I just know I'm going to have a meltdown in the morning. I usually know better than to listen to that voice that appears in the wee hours of the morning when I can't sleep, the voice that tells me all of the things that are wrong with my life and the things that haven't gone wrong yet, but surely will. But I couldn't tune it out that night, maybe because the experience was new to me and I did not yet have any evidence that the voice was wrong. But finally I slept and woke in the morning with my optimism and enthusiasm somewhat restored, although still aching and concerned about my ability to do what was described as the hardest day. I mentioned to Tally that I did not sleep well and was worried about the hike ahead of us. She said, I never sleep well in the backcountry. Even when I did 17-mile days, I couldn't sleep. You hiked strongly yesterday. You'll be fine today. Strongly? Me? Reassured that my insomnia was not unique and boosted by the compliment, I decided I would try to enjoy the day. And it turns out that was my favorite day of the trip. Perfect weather, beautiful scenery, rambunctious rock scrambles, and joyful camaraderie. I finally found my stride and was no longer feeling that every step was grueling. The rock scrambles made me feel like a child again, crawling up with my hands and scooting down on my butt. Friday, our final night, was spent in a popular campground, the trail bordered on one side by a dark spruce forest and the other by an open meadow with beautiful views. We pitched our tents under the canopy of the evergreens. I was buoyed by the great day, looking forward to putting on my sacred socks, the ones that stayed in my sleeping bag, dry the entire trip, and hiking out the last day with clean socks. I finally slept well that night in spite of the boisterous hikers camped near us. But at 4 a.m., after lying awake for a while, trying to deny my bodily needs, I got out of my tent to pee. Afterwards, I thought, now I can go back to sleep. Wait, why is my foot wet? Alas, I had peed on my sacred sock. I had to hike out the final day with one clean sock and one with 2 days' worth of grit and sweat ground into it. But at that point, I didn't care. That is the beauty of backpacking. All you can do each day is focus on the simple. Hike, eat, set up and tear down camp, and soak in the beauty that surrounds you. If something is not to your liking, like dirt in your oatmeal, stinky socks, or ratty hair, there's nothing you can do about it, and so you just accept it. And it is liberating. Our final day was another sunny, clear day. The hike down to our pickup point was both beautiful and sad. I was not yet ready to stop this adventure and leave the group of women I had grown so fond of. On day 1, I did not want to think about how I had 4 more days of these grueling slogs. On day 5, I did not want to be done. Lumpy, the shuttle driver, picked us up at the parking lot at the end of the trail, and while driving back to town, we saw a bear run across the road and up the hill. Once I had some time to reflect on the trip, I thought about my 2 original questions. Could I do this, and did I want to? And the answer to both is an enthusiastic yes. I found that I could do it, I just needed a couple days to acclimate to the weight and the terrain. I also want to do it and have already started planning some future outings. Nearly 2 months later, I would still call this trip magical, one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. The joyful camaraderie was possible only because of the physical and emotional challenges we shared. The stunning views and restorative time in the rhododendron and spruce forests were only possible because of our willingness to take what we needed with us and carry it where no car, boat, or plane could go. Reflecting on the anxiety I felt going into the trip, I was reminded of a quote from Dorothy Draper. which says, "The will to be dreary is a morose little imp which whispers to us that something which we know will be fun would be too much trouble, will take too much time, is too expensive, and probably won't be as amusing after all as just now you think it would be." Now don't listen to that voice. Tune it out. I could have listened to that voice and backed out of this trip when my doubts first started, and my life would have shrunk just a little. Besides the companionship, stunning scenery, and the satisfaction of finding my strength and self-sufficiency, the trip offered one more reward. It was a catalyst, an experience that turned dreams into plans. It awakened in me not only the long dormant dreams of doing more backpacking, but also the courage and confidence to plan for future trips. Not only do I know now that I can do this, I also remember how much I want to do it, something I had forgotten. Without being willing to deal with the anxiety and discomfort, I never would have learned this, and my vague dreams would have remained just that, hazy, unformulated, and unrealized. I don't know that I actually embraced the difficult on this trip or just endured it, but the rewards would not have been possible without the willingness to be challenged, uncomfortable, afraid, and anxious. And I will remember this the next time the morose little voice tries to talk me out of doing something. I still have some unanswered questions, though, and that is, what is this anxiety that can accompany something that will ultimately be rewarding? Is it just fear of the unknown? Brain chemistry? Is it a voice telling me I'm on the right track? Is it the naysayer whispering no? Is it necessary? Can I have deeply rewarding experiences without it? Or is it just an uninvited guest that I take along for the ride because I don't know how not to? To close, though, I'd also like to acknowledge that there is a difference between doing something that is difficult because it is a necessary part of a deeply rewarding experience and doing something difficult that is just plain difficult and has no rewards. Loss, for example, loss of loved ones, livelihood, physical function, just to name a few. These are the difficulties of life that are just a painful part of being alive, and I don't have any deep insights in how to deal with these. I just hope that the strengths we build, the strengths we find we already had, and the perspective we gain from doing what is difficult and rewarding may serve us at other times in our life when faced with what is just difficult. But I don't know, and I would be grateful to hear the perspectives of any of you willing to share them. Thank you. We are ready for our last hymn. Did you want to say something? No, you go ahead. Okay. So please join me now. Stand as willing and able to sing hymn number 318, We Would Be One.
Yes, thank you.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.